All right, I'd like to welcome Marc Boroditsky up. He's the General Manager, Vice President of Authy, and Marc is our host tonight. He'd just like to tell a little bit about what they're doing here at Authy, and then Marc's going to come back as one of our presenters.
Thank you, Miles. You really put on an amazing event. This is a fantastic turnout. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Miles has given me the opportunity to do a little bit of a sales pitch, but I don't know if I want to do that necessarily, so I'm going to ask a few questions and qualify my audience. How many people here, show of hands, have an application, website, or a service that you somehow or another protect with a name and a password? So it's almost everybody, okay? And keep your hands up if that name and password is necessary because you're protecting data or a sensitive service. Oh, still almost everybody. Now tell me, keep your hands up, please. This is also an exercise session. You can put your hands down if you protect your website with two-factor authentication and not name and password alone. All right, so about half of the audience is using some kind of two-factor authentication. Important question. If you're using two-factor authentication, are you using Authy? Very good, thank you very much. So quick sales pitch, because I feel like the rest of the audience deserves to know why two-factor authentication is really necessary. All of us are very familiar with the name and password paradigm. We know the fact that names and passwords have basically failed. Users tend to pick them poorly. They tend to use the same one everywhere, which is actually one of the most significant sources of attacks right now. But who can blame them? I mean, the rules that people put on their websites are crazy, asking them to mix uppercase, lowercase, bizarre punctuation marks, change them on a regular basis, and then we sort of all go through the charade, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, this is gonna work. And in reality, it's not, it's breaking down. And we turn around and we tell the user it's their fault when they actually get breached. But you stop for a moment, you think about it. If your user experience on your website failed, if click-throughs dropped, if transactions started to be abandoned at a higher rate, would you be able to walk into your CEO and say, sorry, we just have dumb users? There's no way. But somehow or another, we continue with this belief that it's okay to blame the user when it comes to authentication. Now, I actually think it's no longer an acceptable excuse, especially given the fact that now there are really solid solutions that can be easily implemented, that are easy for the user to use. And Authy is one of those. Today we deliver authentication as a service. It comes in 3 forms. Authy One Code, which delivers a one-time password by SMS or by voice phone. Authy Soft Token, which is a 4 to 5-star popular application that can run on any one of your devices that will generate a unique code every time you log on. Or Authy One Touch, a beta version of our push authentication technology that sends a message to the user to, with one touch, approve or disapprove an authentication request. Very simple to use. So there's lots of options that are available. We back those capabilities up with a set of self-service functionality that makes it easy for your users to address problems when they experience them. Why is that important? Number one problem with two-factor authentication is lockout. User loses or misplaces their phone, what do? We've got that covered with self-service that eliminates the threat of social engineering, people calling the help desk and claiming to be somebody that lost their phone when in fact they're not, but at the same time eliminates the help desk cost of having to satisfy that situation with a human being verifying the identity of the person at the other end. We deliver it as an extremely reliable service. Today there's more than 10,000 websites and applications out there that are using us to do two-factor authentication. We're doing millions of authentications every week, and we're maintaining 5 nines, so 99.999% uptime. Something that none of our competition actually claims or can prove. And we actually put it out on our website for you to be able to monitor directly to be able to see what our uptime has been and what it will be. We deliver all of this, and this is probably the most important thing. I think this is why Cloudflare and Ripple are customers. We deliver it as an easy but powerful API. So a developer can look at our API and our docs and can figure out very quickly that this is less than half a sprint to implement. So it's not a lot of effort to get in place. They won't need to change the existing logon flows that they've already built and had proven out with their existing users and their product managers. So ultimately, there's really no excuse anymore not to enable two-factor authentication. I'll be here throughout the event. Richard Kirk and Andrew Tom, my colleagues, are also here. So if anybody's interested in learning more, we'd welcome the opportunity to share our experiences and see if we can help you to get two-factor authentication on your sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, Mark.
Thank you, Miles. I really like this image. I'm trying to figure out who's confused here. Is the shark confused by the surfer, or is the surfer confused by the shark? So a couple of trends that I wanted to talk about, which my colleagues sort of hit on, but I want to take it sort of one level lower, and maybe this will help to spawn some questions when we have the panel. Something that we're seeing, that we're talking to a lot of customers about, is a very interesting dynamic that's occurring with the threat surface, with the types of challenges that people are facing. And that is that what are seemingly innocuous breaches, universities, clubs, media websites, things that there's really nothing to protect there, are actually the starting point for fairly complex, relatively sophisticated attacks. In other words, the name and password that you use at your university alma mater, or the one that you use at your favorite local news outlet, could oftentimes be the same name and password that you might utilize at another site. Likewise, the personally identifiable information that's accumulated in these places about you through the interaction that you have with the site becomes the data that's used for the reset questions that you might be utilizing in other sites. Not making this up. I mean, the acquisition of personally identifiable information, compiling it into large-scale databases, sort of utilizing big data methods to mine it, and then apply it as an input for an attack on another site, is actually the way the IRS got hacked, and over 100,000 tax returns were fraudulently filed, and still today, maybe my colleagues know otherwise, more than $50 million worth of money was stolen, and nobody yet knows where that ended up. So it's really interesting to see the weakest links are actually the inputs for relatively sophisticated attacks, which means that the less sensitive, less concerned sites have as big a responsibility as major sites that have significant data to protect in order to make sure that the whole community remains protected. Or we all recognize that all data is going to end up everywhere and stop utilizing static solutions to protect things. Relying on data that's easy to repeat, easy to record, easy to replay is the fallacy in terms of the kind of protection that we're relying on. The other thing that my colleague from Autodesk brought up, and it's something that I want to really heavily reinforce, is every day our developers make tons and tons of decisions. And I can tell you that we spend a lot of time looking for the best and the brightest security engineers, and it's extremely hard to find them. There is a severe shortage of them. And to get a competent solution to market that's not going to end up being susceptible to all forms of potential risk or attacks is extremely difficult to do. So I strongly encourage you when you talk to your developers to ask them and make sure that A, they understand the problem they're trying to solve, or B, they understand the alternatives that are out there. My colleagues that got up and spoke about the challenges that they address with their solutions, they're doing it with deep expertise, deep knowledge, and they're delivering competent solutions that are not only good the day you bought them, but they're maintaining them with the expertise necessary to deal with the constantly changing threatscape that's out there. As a customer of both Okta and Cloudflare, I can tell you that we have great confidence in their solutions because of the investment that they're making and the expertise that they're bringing to bear. I hope that you guys as well, when you go back to your shops, spend time to make sure your developers are looking at the alternatives to building everything themselves. There are a lot of great solutions that are out there that are staffed by extremely competent staffs. So that's my perspective on the outlook of security right now, and I'll hand it off to, oh, I got an extra minute. Can I bank that minute for later?
Right on. Thank you, Mark.